All right. What a town this is, Washington. Hollywood's got nothing on Washington when it comes to entertainment dollar. Your dollar doesn't go very far here, but think of all the entertainment that we give you. Whack-a-doodle-doo. Wow, wow, wow. Man, oh man. Now, I just mentioned that there was an American school teacher from Pennsylvania released from a forced labor camp in Russia where he had been thrown by Vladimir Putin because he's an American school teacher who went to go work in Russia on a school teacher thing. And he foolishly brought with him about a half an ounce of marijuana, and he said it's medical marijuana, and he probably had a prescription of some kind for medical marijuana, which they may not recognize in Russia, being Russia and run by a commie named Putin and all that. But this American was thrown into effectively a gulag, and he was sentenced to 14 years of hard labor in a forced labor camp in Russia, which is something right out of the 20th century with the commies, because, old commies never die. They just kill you. That's an old saying in Russia. Pretty amazing stuff. But we've got some good audio for you on that topic. And the Democrats, they've got a constitutional crisis they're ginning up today. And this is almost a fun one. The New York Times headline, Trump's actions have created a constitutional crisis. And I want to get to that in a minute. But before I do, the Wall Street Journal just popped with a story a very short time ago that I want to share with you now because it goes a long way to explaining why we got the American back. We got the American guy back. And Trump got him back is the bottom line. The Wall Street Journal, and he cut a deal. He negotiated. He bargained. You may remember that when Brittany Griner, that was her name, right? Brittany Griner, the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association player who I think lacked charm. She brought pot to Russia, and she was thrown in jail by Putin and the commies there, Brittany Griner. And Joe Biden traded the Merchant of Death. That's the guy, that's his actual name. His parents named him the Merchant of Death, translated from the original Russian. And we had the Merchant of Death here in prison in the United States, a really bad guy, a mass murderer. Joe Biden handed over the Russian Merchant of Death in exchange for Brittany Griner. Now, the media is already furious because we just learned minutes ago Russian Bitcoin exchange co-founder to be freed by the U.S. after Americans' release. Alexander Vinnik operated BTCE, like Bitcoin E, which U.S. authorities say was a key platform for cyber criminals. Now, and Michael and I were talking about this, so if somebody uses Facebook to organize crimes, does Mark Zuckerberg go to jail? Maybe I don't know all the details here, but Alexander Vinnik, co-founder of BTCE, has been in prison for years and years, not just here, but in other countries as well. And President Trump is going to allow this Russian, who looks like a young guy, I think he's 42 years old, but a picture of him here looks like he's in his 20s, really fit and ready to go. And he's being released in exchange for the American school teacher that was thrown in to a forced labor camp for 14 years. And I want to share this update with you, and then we'll get to President Trump with the American school teacher at the White House late last night. Trump never stops working. The Wall Street Journal reporting, the Russian co-founder of a popular Bitcoin exchange will be released from U.S. custody Wednesday A day after a deal between Washington and Moscow freed American Mark Fogel, a U.S. official said. Alexander Vinnick, the co-founder of BTCE, is in U.S. custody in California and being prepared for transport to Russia, the official said. Not a violent criminal, not the merchant of death. U.S. authorities have said BTCE was a key platform used by cyber criminals to facilitate ransomware extortions, identity theft schemes, and narcotics distribution. Vinnick had been awaiting sentencing in the U.S. in late June. So he's sitting in jail waiting for June so he could be sentenced to prison after pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit money laundering. He had been detained since 2017. First in Greece. I love Greece, wonderful country. Then in France. It's pretty nice, too. Before his extradition to the United States in 2022 at the age of 42. So he's 44 or 45 now. Preparation for Vinnick's departure from the U.S. followed a hastily convened hearing Tuesday at a U.S. federal court in San Francisco about the case, which took place behind closed doors. A few hours later, the American Fogel arrived in the U.S. and was greeted at the White House by President Trump, his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who helped to negotiate the release of the American, and a roster of other politicians. He was greeted at the White House by President Trump and our Secretary of State. Marco Rubio was there. The Speaker of the House was there, meeting this American that had been held by Putin for a long, long time. By then, Alexander Vinnick, could no longer be located in inmate records for the county jail that had been holding him. Still, Vinnick's lawyers did not know what was happening to their client. The White House had not initially indicated what, if anything, the U.S. had given Russia to secure Fogel's release. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had suggested in an interview Tuesday with News Nation, I think it's also important to note it was not in return for anything. He added, there wasn't some deal here where we had to release like 10 spies or the merchant of death, as Joe Biden did. But you got this Bitcoin guy, and he's been in prison since 2017 in Greece and in France and then here because we wanted him. Now, 7-8 years he's been in prison. In D.C., you don't get 7-8 years for murdering somebody. But never mind that. On Wednesday, the U.S. official who confirmed Vinnick was being released sought to frame it as a show of good faith by Russia, linked to overall talks between the two countries that go beyond a straightforward prisoner swap. The U.S. official confirmed that another American would be coming home Wednesday without saying from where. Now, the reality is that, and we have a hostage negotiator, Witkoff, and we have Americans being held by corrupt. President Trump got a bunch of Americans released by the Venezuelan commies about a week ago. And now this American school teacher from Russia, we're giving him a Bitcoin guy who's already been in prison for 7 or 8 years. So another American would be released Wednesday, today, without saying from where. There are Americans being held all over. President Trump is in the process of getting Americans released from beephole countries around the world. And So that's what we know about that. And the Wall Street Journal had, I don't know if they were the very first ones to break the story, but is the first one that popped up in front of me. So good stuff. Russian Bitcoin exchange co-founder to be freed by U.S. after American release. So, yeah, just a regular criminal, not a war criminal or a psychopathic killer, the merchant of death or anything like that. And we're expecting another American to be released today. Perhaps we don't know from where, but we'll find out soon enough. Now, with that said, Where do we go? We're going to, it starts at number 23. Is that correct? Number 23 on our audio actualities sheet. That's Radio Talk. Don't worry about that. We'll worry about that. So Mark Fogel, the school teacher, at the White House last night, and I saw him getting off what looked like a Gulfstream jet. Might have been Andrews Air Force Base or Joint Base Andrews, but I'm not sure. But it is kind of it's a good day, and it's certainly a good day for Mark Fogel. And Americans being held hostage by commies, and President Trump is back. And also, this is part of negotiating to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. So keep that in mind, because, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of lives and wah, right? Now, freed American hostage Mark Fogel lands in U.S. after years in Russian captivity for a half an ounce of what he says was medical marijuana. You got to check with embassies, and there's a minor note of information. If you're traveling to another country and you have medical marijuana, don't assume that they have the same laws that we have in Maryland or California, because they don't very often. And even if they do, if you're going to someplace like Russia run by commies. Now, Mark Fogel couldn't have been happier. We were watching this last night. My best girl and I were watching this last night after enjoying a delicious dinner at home and after being out with friends for a couple of beers and driving home in the snow, and the beautiful snow out the window at home. Very nice. So Mark Fogel, an American who had been detained in Russia since 2021 because of Joe Biden, they're taking hostages knowing that he's weak, landed back in the U.S. on Tuesday. Fogel, a history teacher who was working at the Anglo-American School in Moscow, returned to the U.S. after his release from Russia following talks with the Trump administration. He was serving a 14-year jail sentence after his arrest in August of 2021 at a Russian airport for possession of drugs, which his family said was medically prescribed marijuana. Fogel was seen in a picture posted by the White House on social media, smiling and raising his fist while wrapped in an American flag as he walked off the plane onto U.S. soil. And again, the plane it's a small jet, corporate, maybe government jet. Looks like it might be a Gulfstream jet made in Georgia. Mark Fogel is back. Promises made, promises kept. The White House posted on X after his arrival in the U.S. Fogel from Pennsylvania met with President Trump at the White House and called him a hero for securing his release. And I've got the audio that I'm going to play for you in just a moment of Fogel at the White House. And this is a guy who couldn't be happier. Another American being held overseas, reportedly going to be released today, and not in exchange for war criminals and the merchant of death like Joe Biden. Gave up for a WNBA player who I don't think that was medical marijuana. She's just a stoner and figured that she could bring her dope along, and it's Russia. What are they going to do? They threw her in prison. We don't teach people a lot anymore about the world that we live in, do we? No, we don't. You know that this country was built on hard work. Going back to the very beginning, whether you're standing long hours every day, running errands, chasing the kids, or just doing your part to keep the world running on time, you shouldn't have to deal with fatigue. And that's where G-Defy shoes come in. Built with patented VersaShock technology. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has authorized G-Defy to have me tell you that these shoes help to relieve minor occasional pain associated with walking, with running, prolonged periods of standing on your feet. G-Defy shoes help to absorb harmful shock, align your body properly, improve your biomechanics, and return energy with every step you take. My best girl and I, we've got G-Defy shoes that they sent us. We hike around the city. Your arches feel better at the end of your hike than they felt at the beginning. Right now, you can get 50% off your order of $120 or more by texting Chris to 91888 or by heading online to gdefy.com and using the code Chris. That's the code Chris at 91888. With Gdefy's 60-day free, it's a risk-free trial, you've got nothing to lose. Message and data rates may apply. Yes, sir. So I've got the audio of the president, the White House, the released American hostage back from Russia coming up. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. All right, before I got a bunch of President Trump audio at the White House last night and all kinds of fun stuff, and Elon Musk with Trump yesterday. But before we get to that, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Pitts, calling from Charleston, South Carolina. Pitts, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Pitts.
Good hearing from you. You are the happy warrior. We love you. Hey, I've been trying to call for a couple of months. The real quick one I had was I was going to ask you if you could change your Pound Me Too movement. We haven't talked about that in a while, but back when we were talking about this before the election, when we're talking about the Democrat men, we need to change it to Pound You Too for the guys out there on the other side. My main point that I was calling about is a more serious point. The court system appearing to be rogue and infected with radicals.
Yeah.
If we could start some sort of a movement where while we have two houses, if they could pass some sort of a resolution that points out that this is nothing but interference. The executive has to have the ability to manage the executive branch without interference from thousands of judges across the country. And if they could pass some sort of we're already in a constitutional crisis. They're talking about Trump creating this constitutional crisis, but the abuse of the court system has been causing this. It was during the first term, now in his second term. If they could get the support of the Congress to say, yes, move along, as Biden did.
Yeah, it's judicial You're talking about judicial activism, Pitts, and they go venue shopping and they find Obama appointees to the court, which they did in Rhode Island yesterday with John J. McConnell Jr., the judge in Rhode Island that cut off Trump, an Obama appointee. And he's a politician. He's not a jurist, as most Democrat nominees are. Bam, bam, bam. There is a fun, our great friend Kevin sent along a fun meme. I think you can call it a meme. It's the left-wing rag in Washington called Politico. It's a very political journalistic outfit. And on October 10th, less than a month before the presidential election, Kamala Harris was their nominee. Remember that? The Politico headline on the economy is, Harris is riding a dream economy into the election. It may be too late for voters to notice. And they're so, man, the economy's so great because Joe Biden and the Democrats, it's wonderful. Now President Trump is in the White House. The same publication, Politico, their headline is, voters were right about the economy. The data was wrong. Here's why unemployment is higher, wages are lower, and growth less robust than government statistics suggests. I'm sorry, what? So it's like same economy, essentially same economy, same day. And when there's a Democrat, the headline is Harris riding a dream economy into the election. Then Trump is in the White House. Here's why unemployment is higher, wages are lower, and growth is less robust. Because it's propaganda. It's not journalism. It's politics. And that's our news media. They're quite remarkable, aren't they? All right, now, as advertised, let me get to the events at the White House yesterday when the American hostage, in effect, it was 0.6 ounces of marijuana that he brought with him, slightly more than 1/2 of an ounce of marijuana that he brought with him to Russia, which he said he had a doctor's prescription for. Apparently, the Russians don't recognize medical marijuana, I'm just guessing. So they put him in a forced labor camp for 14 years. And it does sound a lot like the WNBA lady Brittany Griner, American, who brought pot with her, weed, marijuana to Russia. She was thrown in jail. And Joe Biden handed over the merchant of death to Vladimir Putin. You know, he's a friend of Putin because he's the merchant of death, right? And President Trump is handing over a Bitcoin guy who has already spent 7 years in prison he was grabbed in Greece, then sent to a prison in France, then a prison in the United States in California, 7 years incarcerated. And he's being sent back, a Bitcoin guy, not the same as the merchant of death. But let's go to yesterday at the White House. Number 23, Mark Fogel, the Pennsylvania school teacher who thought he was doing good deeds going over to, and President Trump got him out. And I got to say, he got off the jet. It looked like a government jet. And he was wrapped in a big American flag, the kind you'd put on a 40-foot flagpole in front of your house, wrapped around his shoulders. And he looked like he had just won an Olympic gold medal or something. The smile on his face, he couldn't have been happier. Getting off the jet, pumping his fist in the air like Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, pumping his fist in the air. And I don't know, I mean, I haven't seen anything saying, oh, yeah, guy's a big Trump supporter, anything like that. But Trump just got him out of a Russian forced labor camp. He's going to be a big Trump supporter from now on. I'll bet $1 on that. So the now former hostage of Vladimir Putin and Russia at the White House yesterday.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero.
President Trump is a hero. And Trump's, they're standing together at the, you can hear the media cameras and stuff, and freed American hostage, years in Russian captivity. And he's back. He's very happy about it. Mark Fogel, looking forward to getting home to Pennsylvania.
Knowing I had the support of my fellow Pennsylvanians, my family, my friends, it was so overwhelming that it brought me to my knees and it brought me to tears.
A history teacher, right? Going to work at the Anglo-American School in Moscow. Should probably remove the Anglo-American School from Moscow. Just get out of there. You don't really want to be doing that. And if he was not a Trump fan before, I'd be interested to know whether he voted for Biden. An academic doesn't really matter much, but it would be interesting to know. School teacher, Pennsylvania, going to Russia to work in one of these things. You might, just on its face, say Biden voter, Obama guy. He didn't vote for Kamala Harris because he was in a forced labor prison in Russia. Mark Fogel at the White House.
I will forever be indebted to President Trump, to Steve over there, and Secretary Rubio, who met my son a while back.
To Steve over there, that's President Trump's negotiator who was getting the deal done, and he's working on getting another American freed today from another beephole country. This guy was thrown in a forced labor Russian prison camp with a 14-year sentence. Now, that is completely nuts. Man. And he's a school teacher from Pennsylvania. What is up with that? Russia and commies, Putin's an old KGB guy. He's a commie thug. He's a murderer. He's a criminal. And he might be creating a constitutional crisis. What do you think in Russia? Mark Fogel. And it was late last night, too. What was it, in the 10 p.m. hour? I think it was in the 10 p.m. hour Eastern time when President Trump was up with Mark Fogel. And Trump was so busy all day long. The guy never stops. He's a machine. And hour of day, he doesn't care. He doesn't drink alcohol. He's, and he's texting at 1 a.m. and at 3 a.m. and he's or tweeting or whatever, all that stuff. Mark Fogel.
I'm a middle-class school teacher who's now in a dream world. And
choking up.
I love our country, and I'm so happy to be back here.
I love our country, and I'm so happy to be back here. And he was genuinely choked up, as you might imagine. It would be perfectly understandable. I've never been thrown into a Russian gulag. I'm happy to say I'm signing the cross. I have been to some beep holes around the world, and there have been times when I've been on a U.S. government airplane coming home from a beep hole. And land at Andrews Air Force Base, Joint Base Andrews. And more than once did I get down on my knees and kiss the tarmac at Andrews. Hey, America, glad to be back. Got to tell you, President Trump, and this is fascinating, too, because President Trump had apparently met Mark Fogel's mother. And Mark Fogel's mother had pleaded with President Trump to get her son out of this Russian hellhole prison. And President Trump remembered meeting Mom and last night mentioned that to Mark Fogel, and he was smiling ear to ear.
He's got a great mother. And when I saw the mother at a rally, she said, if you win, will you get my son out? And I promised. She's 95 years old. And I said, we'll get him out. And we got him out pretty quickly.
She told me that exact words.
I remember. She made quite an impression.
And you also did. Yeah. And I'm in awe of what you've done and your team.
It's great to have you back.
Oh.
Going to have a great life.
And she is a 95-year-old woman. 95-year-old Malfine Fogel's tireless fight to bring her son Mark home from Russia. And that is, that makes it even more fun, I've got to say. How nice is that? Got a nice mother. And Trump remembers meeting the mother, saying, wait a minute, and you're on the campaign trail. You meet 100 people in an hour. And he meets the 95-year-old mother. My son, Mark, is being held in Russia. If you're elected president, will you get him out? Yes, I will. And then he does. And after the fact, President of the United States, billionaire, kind of a busy guy. And he remembers the age of the mother, remembers meeting the mother, talking to the mother, what he said to the mother, what the mother said to him. Mark Fogel says, he's crying. Talked to my mom, and she told me that she'd talk to you. How wonderful is that? And stand by, because this is crazy. The story that CBS News has, Malfine Fogel is feeling joyfully resolute. She and Mark Fogel's wife and siblings have been waiting for more than 3.5 years for this day. Although she's been hopeful for this day, his release today came as a total surprise to her, too. Now, here's the thing that got my attention. The dateline on the story, he's from Pennsylvania. The dateline on the story is Butler, Pennsylvania. That's the town where Donald Trump was shot through the ear by a bullet from a sniper's rifle in Butler, Pennsylvania. And is that where President Trump met Mom? And Mom asked, just amazing. I really wondered, Mom, the 95-year-old mother, Malfine Fogel said, I really wondered if I would get to see him again. I think he worried about it, meaning, Trump worried about it. Malfine's daily prayers, wonderful, wonderful. And Butler, Pennsylvania is the dateline where Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. Missed it by that much. Man, oh man. Dan Hoffman. Dan Hoffman is the former CIA station chief in Moscow, Russia, and he knows a thing or two about Putin and about Russia. And I've met Dan a couple of times. We had dinner at Sebastian and Kate Gorka's house, at the Gorka's house. Dan Hoffman, good guy, solid guy, and again, CIA station chief in Moscow for a long, long time. And he this morning was on the television talking about what happened last night and the release of Fogel and the meeting at the White House.
It is a joyous occasion. Look, he was bypassed twice. There was a big exchange in 2022 when we secured the release of basketball player Brittany Griner in return for giving the Russians the Merchant of Death, Victor Bout.
Right. Yeah, kind of the Merchant of Death, Victor Bout, in exchange for Brittany Griner, but didn't get Fogel, didn't get Mark Fogel up. Joe Biden said, they hate white guys, something like that. Dan Hoffman, former Moscow station chief, CIA.
He was detained in Russia in 2021 for carrying 0.6 ounces of medical marijuana with him. He was a teacher at the Anglo-American school, and there's no doubt that his arrest was a pretext for Russia so that Putin could seek to extort us as he has in the past.
As he has in the past, and because he's a gangster, because he's a commie and a KGB guy. And Dan Hoffman on the bigger picture.
Good on the Trump administration for getting him out so quickly in a matter of weeks. And it is a cause for celebration. And we'll just wait to see how this might relate to the overall strategic relationship between the United States and Russia.
Yes, sir. And this one, Michael Piercy found this one this morning. It threw him for a loop. He's like, what? Barack Obama's ambassador to Russia, a man named Mike McFaul, no longer the ambassador to Russia, but an Obama guy, Mike McFaul, on, what was he on, CNN? MSDNC? He was on DNC TV, so that's all you need to know, an Obama administration guy, and on MSDNC was asked about the release.
Hallelujah. Fantastic news. Praise be to President Donald Trump. That's not a phrase I get to say very often. I don't know the circumstances. I don't know the deal. We'll learn those later, and I don't care.
Wow. How about that? Good for you. How out of character for a Democrat of any kind. Just amazing, amazing stuff. Now, we really didn't get the Elon Musk. Let's go to soundbite number one, right? Because President Trump, that's that. And, welcome home, welcome to America, brother. And President Trump meeting with Elon Musk yesterday at the White House, and the press like a pack of locusts going out. They can't decide who they hate more. But the great Elon Musk with the great Donald Trump at the White House yesterday. And Elon Musk had one of his many kids with him there in the Oval Office. And the kid was picking his nose and jamming his fingers in Elon Musk's ears and, being a kid and looking around like, hey, what's all this going on? But it was a fascinating video.
X, are you okay? This is X, and he's a great guy, high IQ. He's a high IQ individual.
X, high IQ. I would imagine that Elon Musk's kid is probably a high IQ individual. Now, does he call everything X? Because pretty amazing stuff. And the left is so mentally ill. President Trump meeting with Elon Musk, great stuff at the White House yesterday.
The groups of people that are getting some of these payments, they're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse.
We found fraud and abuse. How much? Billions, hundreds? And apparently the kid's name is X. He changed the name of Twitter to X. He's got a son named X who's 4 years old. He really likes X, Trump and Elon Musk.
It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them. And you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge who's an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why? Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt.
Yeah, and waste, fraud, and abuse. The Democrats are fighting in favor of waste, fraud, and abuse. with your money and my money. President Trump said, why do you think people voted for me?
We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud, abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that.
Yeah, an Obama-appointed judge, of course, Trump, with Musk and the kid climbing all over him like a little monkey.
What is the goal of Doge, and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy? We're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present.
Common sense.
That haven't been present.
Yeah. Well, the Democrats, they claim, we've got the constitutional crisis. Everything's constitutional crisis. They are the constitutional crisis, the Democrat Party. A gender dysphoric constitutional crisis. Never had that before. That's coming up. Tulsi Gabbard has been confirmed by the Senate to become the Secretary of the the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI, confirmed. Mitch McConnell voted against her. The only Republican to vote against her was the Turtle. The vote was 52-48 because every goose-stepping fascist Democrat lemming voted against her because, they're the party of Mary Jo Kopechne. So good for Tulsi. That is justice. The Democrat Party and the media, but I repeat myself, are on a jag today, saying Trump has created a constitutional crisis. The New York Times headline is, Trump's actions have created a constitutional crisis, scholars say. They really mean Democrats say.
Are we already in a constitutional crisis?
No.
Those two words, right? Constitutional crisis.
That is a constitutional crisis. And that, by the way, is how dictators come into power.
Dictators.
On the term constitutional crisis.
The constitutional crisis.
Yes.
Are we nearing a constitutional crisis now?
A constitutional crisis, the real constitutional crisis.
Our media, our Democrats, they're not on the side of truth, justice, or the American way. They're not liberals. They're the left. When they're talking, they're lying.